So I pulled a sheet of 16 gauge galvanized steel out of my car that I bought the other day, and I kind of squint the whole time I do it, even though I'm still wearing a face shield. I'm using a standard carbide wood cutting saw blade, which is the wrong tool for the job, but it's working very well. It goes right through it. All right, I mean, I wouldn't cut wood with that blade again, but I've cut this 36-inch distance. Gosh darn, look at that, where the OSPO dripped off the bottom. I cut the 36-inch distance. I've cut the 18-inch distance on this, and I've cut those. So that's two of those. That's like 7 feet long, and it's still cutting. So I'm going to keep on using it. It does send metal particles flying everywhere, and it's kind of scary when the kerf comes up in front of the blade, and it looks like this is going to get caught down in the blade. This thing it rides on this is not the blade I'm talking about, but this thing rides really close to the top of the blade, and the blade's coming this way. So every so often I stop and I break this thing off, just because it scares the crap out of me. So that blade cuts, but it doesn't cut really smooth. Every so often the blade has a little bit of a chatter to it, and it makes the edge come out bumpy. So I put my carborundum blade in it, and I set the fence just so it's barely touching, and I super slowly feed that in there and just let it grind the edge smooth, so the edges are nice and smooth. And then I hit them with the file, and I rounded off the corners so everything's nice and smooth. That's how I work on the other one. So the part I wanted to show you now, I went and verified the space from the edge to where the holes are drilled on the bus, and I remember now it's 300 thousandths of an inch. So I used my cheapo digital caliper, and I scratched. There's my little woman. I'm recording. You want to be in the video?
No.
Okay. You just wondering who I'm talking to?
I thought it was somebody.
All right. So where was I? All right. So I put a scratch all the way around here at 300 thousandths from the edge, so that's where all the screw holes are going to go. And then I just used my fingers kind of like this, and I estimated what the spacing could be. And I tried like 4, dividing it by 4 and dividing it by 5 seemed to be the right space. Then I got an accurate measure from this line to this line, and that was, I forget, that was 17 3/8. So then I divided that 17.375 by 5, and it gave me a measurement, which I don't think this will tell me anymore. Yeah, 3.478 ish. So then I double checked that actually divides evenly. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, ish. So then I was curious to see what was the spacing we had on these, just so that we could be kind of close, and it's almost exactly the same. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come back here, and we're going to actually scratch this thing using this like a compass. And I think what I'll do is do it from the left side twice and then from the right side twice. So if there's any unevenness, it won't show, and it'll be right in the middle. So I'll scratch this side and I'll scratch that side, and then I'll do the same process over here and over here to get more or less the same kind of spacing. Alright, so I just went and scratched it. I'm sorry I can't show you me doing it, but one hand it just doesn't work. So I supported this by the left side and kept that point on there, and I made that scratch. And then I did it again over here and made that scratch. And then I came to the right side, started at that point, made that scratch, then made that scratch, and then I double checked what's going on here between that and that, and it's off just by a tad, and it's basically, you know, my inaccuracy and where my start place is, and etc., etc. I mean, but the math is going to be flawless. So I'm good with that. Now, next thing I'll do is I'll repeat this on the other side, of course, then the other sides. The next step is going to be putting center punch marks on all these, and then come back with the hole puncher and punch them on the spots. And what that does is, instead of using a drill, firstly, the hole puncher is quicker, but the hole puncher has a little point. It'll drop into the little hole that the center punch makes, and the holes will come dead on center with your punch marks. And that's how I'm able to get all these holes drilled so straight. So at this point, I have the marks all the way around. Now I'm going to use this automatic center punch to carefully put a punch mark on every one of those crosses. So this is like a, I don't know, you can get these for $5 on Amazon. They're wonderful. They're not, I mean, you can spend a lot of money and buy one of these from Starrett and it'll be much better quality than this, but this thing works okay. The metal of this tip is not very hard. I'm continually having to resharpen it. Matter of fact, I might resharpen it now before I get started on this thing. I think maybe it's good enough. So you just, if you're not familiar with one of these things, give me something I can test this on. I just do it on my table saw. You just push against the spring in there, and the spring slips off, and it'll make a little tiny punch mark. So in order to get a good punch mark with this, it's best to have something heavy and solid behind here to support the metal. So I'll make sure that wherever I do this, there's not a gap in the metal like this, and it just happens there's a spot right there. So I'll just have to move this over a little bit when I go to punch that one. And then likewise, going up this side here, I'll slide it over and make sure I'm over a nice heavy solid area of my table saw. And after I get those, then it's just a regular old center punch. And then I'll show you the hole punch process. Okay, so here's take 2, since I forgot to hit record. This is my Chinese clone of my Whitney No. 5 hole puncher. You take the screw out of here so this can move out the way, and you stick your anvil, or their punch actually, in here, and you line up. Right? You line that up on there like that, and put this in. Then you take the corresponding die and you screw it in here. And this is also an adjustment for your thickness and your punch depth. You got to make sure you have enough punch depth to compensate for the flex that this is going to have to fully punch the metal. So this thing actually does stretch kind of a lot. So if you look at these guys close, that little tip right there, when you go to do your punch, you can feel it drop in the hole. Okay? and then you punch it, and every hole will come out exactly where your center punch marks are. So the hole size that we've got here is 1/8 of an inch, which is the finished hole size we want in the bus. That's the size of the hole we want for the screw threads to grab into. So we're going to drill this whole piece of metal with that size bit. We're going to position this over the opening using tape measures and pencil lines and whatever to get it in the right spot and clamp it. And once we've got it positioned in the right spot, then we'll go in 2 opposite corners and put 2 holes in the bus, 1/8 inch diameter holes. Then we'll remove everything. We'll come back to the table here and drill out the same holes that we just drilled into the bus with the larger size, I forget, with 11/64 or something, so that the screw can slip through. Then we go back to the bus, attach the metal with the 2 screws. Now it can't move. Then we go and drill through each of these holes that are going to be in here into the bus. Then the bus will have all the holes in it. Then we remove this again, put it back on the bench, and we do the final hole drilling of all the holes to the larger size. Then we deburr everything. Then we rough up the surface for the adhesive to bite into the bus, making sure we do the correct side, because once we get all the holes drilled, you can't flip this thing over or turn it or anything, which reminds me what I also like to do is take a Sharpie and I'll put an arrow indicating up, and it also tells me that's the outside because that's a side I can see. It's my method, okay? You guys can do however you like. So let me start punching some holes and I'll come back. Okay, we're all punched. And I flipped it over because this is the better side. So this is going to be the top, which is working out good because all my scratches are on this side, which don't really matter. I haven't scratched through the galvanized, but what I wanted to show you here, if I can get the reflection, you see how dead on that is with those scratch marks? It's as accurately punched as I was able to center punch on those marks. Pretty good, huh? Got to get the glare just right to see the lines. All right, so this thing's ready, but Barbara's working on the...
To the end.
No, just go ahead. I got more to do. So since she's working there, I don't want to have drills and metal shavings and stuff around her. I'm going to cut this piece in half. It just happens to be the right length. And it just happens to be the right width to cut right in half. And these 2 pieces will then be able to cover up those taillights. So I'm going to have to switch the blade on the table saw to that wood blade, which I use to cut metal. Yes, it's very freaky, but it works very well. And so this is the finish that it makes. I mean, it's mostly perfect, but every so often it gets like a rattle to it, and it'll put, you know, a little gouge. So after I cut it with that saw blade, I come back and I switch to the carborundum blade and I smooth out the edges. Then alright, it's 7 o'clock in the evening and I finally got this far. I had a little bit of a break. I took about an hour. I quit doing some work on it, but I got this all done, figured out my spacing the way I liked it. I guess I could have put these a little closer, but I'm okay with it. If I would have put them in the corners, that span would have been too great. And if I put one in the middle, then the spans would have been too small for my liking. So I copied the spacing here and that I have on the side of the bus already, and I just centered that spacing here, which gave me about 1.50 inches from the ends. So then I duplicated 1.50 inches from this end to there. It's weird, it looks like I might have missed something. Let me triple check that. But then I divided this one up here, just whatever. I divided it by 5 and it came close to, let's see what we got here. Yeah, that's 1.50-ish. And an inch, it's the same. It's just the way the lines are on there. It looks a little bit different.
I'm heating up the sausage.
All right, baby. Gonna have sausage for dinner. So here's a trick. So when I laid this out, I made a bad measurement, and when I divided it out and then I put my marks, 2 marks from this side and then 2 marks from this side, the space between the two wasn't right. It was much wider, like I don't know, you can see the other lines there. So rather than flipping it over or whatever, you just take a Sharpie pen, regular old Sharpie, and color the area and give it 30 seconds or something to dry, almost instantly really. When you can scratch through the Sharpie, like you can see right there how I did it. And you can see the original mark on the right side of the hole there. There you can see the Sharpie where the center of the hole is, and the original line was right there. So that's a good trick. And I had a little faux pas on that one too. But you double check your measurements before you punch the holes, and then everything's good. And alcohol, regular old rubbing alcohol, will take Sharpie ink right off. So I'm ready to do sheet metal installation work tomorrow. We're going to, I don't want to try doing this tonight because the dew is setting in, but we'll take that glass out, which might be a pain, and then we're going to cover up these bottom lights, and I don't know what I'll work on next. I don't have the compartment yet for the left side. Oh, I guess I'll go back under the bus tomorrow and spray the undercoating. Barbara was out here and she took off all these stickers, so now the only thing left is the goo. So I can work on that tomorrow. That'll probably be it for tomorrow. Yeah, that'll be it for tomorrow. If I have time, yeah, I still got this sheet metal here. I could make the door jamb, I guess you call it, or the weather strip seat, or whatever you want. All right, I decided to keep working until I'm too damn hungry to stay out here. You might be able to hear my stomach growling. So this was looking to be very awkward to do, but it turned out to be very easy. So the first thing I did is I found the center of the door, and I knew this was 36 inches, so I just went 18 from each side and put a pencil mark, and I did something similar for the vertical. And then I was thinking, well, how am I going to hold this thing to get the clamps on, because I want this to be as close to equally positioned, right? So what I did is I took a piece of wood and I clamped it. I put one clamp in the middle on a piece of wood that was about 2 feet long right there. And when I set this thing on there, it was horizontally level, just about anyway. So I had to tweak it about 1/16 of an inch. And then I tweaked to get on the lines here, and I'm within a 32nd of an inch difference from there to there, and that's good enough for me. So now, like I was mentioning earlier, I'm going to drill 2 holes into the door. I guess this would be the easiest one here, and then one over here someplace. It doesn't matter and then those screws will positively hold this thing in its right place, and I won't need the clamps. Then I'll drill all the rest of the holes. So I'll be able to shut the door then. Right now the door is hitting where the clamp is. So I shut the door, I could press firmly. And then after all the holes are drilled, you notice my arrow, so I can't accidentally put this thing the wrong way. When all the holes are drilled, I'll remove the sheet metal, drill out all these holes to the larger size, and then this will be ready for installation tomorrow when there's no dew and no rain. I just felt a raindrop. So I will do the same for the plates that are covering the backup lights if I don't get too hungry. And then tomorrow I'll get a good start.